Welcome. I see everyone is starting to stroll in. I'm very excited about getting started here. So I also have a side monitor, so I'm also seeing what you are seeing. And so hopefully you guys are hearing me okay. Okay, we got more people coming in the room. As you're coming in, I just want to acquaint you with, let me turn the my video feed on. I'm going to switch from that first slide here. Okay, and it'd be good if you could see me. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Productivity 2.0. My name is Eric Tivers. I'm thrilled to have you here. As the room just opened up, I'm going to give people just a couple minutes to come in before we actually start the presentation. But I want to familiarize everybody with the webinar platform that we are using. We are inside of a Google Hangouts on Air. So you know this will be this is being streamed live and will be available for download later on after the webinar is over. So if you look to your right side, you will see that there is now. If you're on a mobile device, this is different. So I'm going to first tell everybody what to expect if you're on a computer. On the right side, you will see a chat bar, a thing that says polls, the attendees, and pop-ins. And so I may be referencing that during this webinar. And you will see in there right now that I have posted an admin note. Just kind of letting you know that once the presentation begins, I'm not going to be looking at the chat dialogue because that would be way too distracting to me. I've done webinars in the past with Ada, and it was just way too distracting when I had the chat dialogue open. So right now we have 19 people in the room. I know that there are about twice that have registered, although I did not check this morning at the last registration number. So welcome. I'm so thrilled that you guys are spending your lunch hour with me. I'm hoping that technology cooperates with us, since this is a technology-based presentation. That's how do we use technology to increase our productivity. And then at the very end of the presentation, I'm going to be talking with you guys about the ADHD Rewired Coaching and Accountability Group. Now, it is still open. There are, as we speak, 2 spots open. When it fills up, it fills up. If you do go ahead and sign up for it during the webinar, first, thank you. Second, if it overfills, I will be putting you on a wait list, and if it fills up, I will. Don't worry, I will get you a refund immediately if you do sign up for the group. And it does fill up because I will probably be starting another one after I get the first one started. So we have 10 people available in it now, or are currently in it now, and 2 people. There are spots for 2 more people. So we have 20 people right now. We're going to go ahead and get started in just a moment. I'm going to switch to the chat room, and if you guys can just say hi, let me know if you can hear everything okay, and we'll get started here in just a minute because I'm really excited about this presentation. I'm going to turn my volume up on my microphone just a smidge here, and hopefully that will help. If it is too loud after you've heard me tell you that I'm turning my microphone up, let me know so I can turn it back down before we actually begin here. Let me just adjust myself a little bit. Okay. So if you have comments, if you also notice on the chat, on your chat menu, you can indicate whether or not, and I'm looking at the viewer window right now, talk about ADHD and multitasking. Um, my monitor window is further away from me, so I can't actually see it. So I'm going to lean forward for a second. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do to start is I'm posting a poll right now. So hopefully that will populate um, in the next to the chat bar. It is the second window. So I am going to tap on it to see if it populates for you guys. It doesn't look like it has yet. I did a dry run yesterday, and it looks like there were a few. Oh, it looks like it just populated. Okay, so tap on the polls tab. I just want to hear how you learned about the webinar, because I just want to know how you guys found this so I can know when I do this again, where to spend more of my time to see what works. Because one of the things we want to do is figure out when we are spending our time doing things, what's working so we can do more of it, and what's not working so we don't do more of that. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys all a moment to respond to the poll. And then make sure after you click, after you vote, click the vote button that's on the right. And again, if you are using a mobile device, you're going to have to quickly push done on your video feed, and then you will see all the options and tabs that I'm talking about. You can respond to it, and then you just push play on the video feed. It will kind of be like pausing a DVR. It'll pick up right where you left off. And so you can either do it that way, or you can just scroll forward and pick up where everybody else is. Okay. So I'm also curious to know, and I'm about to post another poll. Let's see. It appears that I might be able to only do one at a time. So I'm going to let that one go, but I will be asking in a little while what kind of smartphones you guys have. All right, so people are telling me the audio sounds good. And if you didn't read the admin notice at the very beginning, the way this is set up, there's about a minute delay from what you're hearing right now. It was actually set about a minute ago. Okay, so the chat room is live and in real time, but for some reason, just the way the platform works, there's a little bit of a delay. So when you are posting just a comment, make sure to click the chat button. If you have a question, make sure you post it as a question. So when I scroll through at the end, I can more easily then answer people's questions. So if you scroll down to the bottom, you should be of the chat bar, you should be able to indicate whether it's a comment or a question. Okay. We have 25 attendees currently in the room, and I think we are going to go ahead and get started. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch my my phone, not my phone. I just looked at my phone inside a phone. I'm going to turn my phone on silent so I don't get distracted by that. I'm going to switch over to the slides. And so just give me just a second here to switch it over, and we're going to get started. If you are planning on going to the CHAD conference in Chicago this year, this is what you're going to see is an abridged version of that presentation that I'm going to be presenting at the CHAD conference. And you can get information on that at chad.org. Okay, switching over to the share screen. Let's hope for the best, and hopefully the technology all cooperates. All right. Just getting myself kind of acclimated here. All right. I'm just going to wait to begin until I actually see it on my screen. And it's weird because where I'm looking at right now on the right side of me is a minute behind. As you can imagine, it's a little disorienting. So, with all things, we get used to them as we go, and I'm just thrilled to have the opportunity to do this, and that you guys are spending lunch with me. Okay, so I'm just waiting to see it populate just to make sure. Okay, I see the screen just went dark here. Okay. So this presentation is called Productivity 2.0, Smart Tools and Smarter Apps. This is all about building your productivity tool belt. So remembering to do the right thing at the right time really depends on using two specific types of strategies. And that's using timers and reminders, the things that cue ourselves at that right moment and to help us monitor how long we're doing things for. But if we really want to take a deeper dive into the world of productivity and get more done, we have to look at other factors and other tools that are more than just timers and reminders. So I'm wondering how many of you are really just tired of missed opportunities, forgotten appointments, deadlines that came and went, and when you realize that you missed the boat yet again, you stand there shaking your head in disbelief, regret, shame, and anger, and maybe even helplessness, wondering, why me? Well, believe it or not, these experiences do happen to those, I guess you can say, quote unquote, normals, those people without ADHD. And sometimes it's like they make it look easy. It's just that for them, it happens a lot less than it happens to those of us who are living with ADHD. But the good news is that this really can change. But the first steps to changing our actions and our feelings is by changing our thoughts. But in order to change our thoughts, we have to really know how we think about things. So as I just said, the thinking about those first steps to changing our actions is really knowing our thoughts. And I think it's true that people with ADHD often try to go through life on autopilot. The only problem with this is, while the autopilot button might be there, it's not connected to anything. So you turn on autopilot, but you end up crashing or at least not arriving at your intended destination. So maybe others around you view you as lazy. But let me tell you something. Here is lazy. Laziness is the choice of inactivity. What we are talking about is ADHD, and we know based on functional brain imaging studies that not only are people with ADHD not lazy, our brains actually work much harder on tasks that require sustained effort and attention. So I'm not going to give you really an overview of ADHD. I just want to really point out that these are the things that are required for productivity. When you look at ADHD as a neurobiological disorder that affects the brain's internal communication and command center, it affects things like our time awareness, our motivation, our memory, and our mental flexibility. And if you notice next to the word motivation is the word dopamine. Guys, motivation is not a character component. It is a neurological aspect of our brain. And the parts of our brain that are responsible for that don't regulate it as well as we would like it to. So really quickly, these are the top lies that people with ADHD tell themselves and really believe. It's amazing the little things that we have in common. But as I keep saying, that the first part of changing our behaviors is to recognize certain thoughts that we all have in common. And I think that you will find that these are special thoughts that many of us with ADHD tend to say and really even believe. So that's why I call this the lies that we tell ourselves but really believe. And I think the number one is I will remember that. So I'd be curious to know from you guys, and you can maybe add this in the chat window, what are the lies that you tell yourself that you really believe? So when we understand some of the differences and the challenges with ADHD, we can begin to set up systems for ourselves that are going to really respond to the specific issues for our specific ADHD. When it comes to productivity, we have to accept the fact that a lot of this stuff is not intuitive for us. We need to actually learn the things that for some people kind of just comes naturally. While there are exceptions to what I'm about to say here, I think that in the field of ADHD, as coaches and clinicians, I think those who have ADHD seem to kind of get it a lot more than those who don't have ADHD, but there are certainly exceptions to that. So those of us who have ADHD, like myself, I get excited sharing this stuff because I used to struggle with this stuff, and I still have to work on it. I still have to be mindful about it. But we figured it out, and it's exciting to share it with others. So, because look, I used to be completely time blind, planning challenged, disorganized, a dysfunctional mess, and I've certainly experienced my share of failures. So now I'm a time monitoring, semi-organized. I have a 5 to 10 year plan, productivityist. I've kind of cracked the code, well, at least most of it. So I've learned from these failures, and I continue to learn from these failures, and which is awesome because I have no problem failing in public. I sent out an email, I think it was yesterday, and I have a rule for myself that I don't send out an email before my wife looks at it. Well, I didn't follow that rule because I had to get the email notifying everybody about this presentation, and I wake up in the morning and my wife says to me, Friday the 23rd, it's the 22nd. So I had to send out a oops correction email. So even when we know what to do, we don't always do what we know. And as I was just saying, it's all about failing forward and not being afraid to fail forward. But we have to learn from our mistakes. And as long as we do, that's great. Because guys, success is a direction. It's not the destination. And I kind of live by the motto that if we haven't failed at least once a day, then we weren't trying hard enough. So let's talk for a moment about goals. We have to have goals to give us an idea about where we are going. I think without goals, we're going through life on autopilot. And we need goals so we know if we are making progress. But I think that sometimes when someone just maybe says to you, well, just create some goals, it can be about as helpful as saying, just write it down, as if we hadn't thought of that already. So there are some key factors to consider when you have ADHD. Things like, are your goals or the things that you want to be paying attention to actually grabbing your attention? Is the thing that is the motivation factor, is it clear and is it visible? Are you creating a reward for yourself, and do you have it visible as a reminder to yourself why you're doing something, especially if it's something that might be boring? I think that exercise and rest is crucial to maximizing your brain's potential. So make sure that you're getting enough sleep. This is definitely advice that I'm giving, and I need to learn how to do it myself. It's something that I work on every day, and I have some days that I do it well, and I have some days that I don't. You have to reward yourself as well. For people with ADHD, it's important to understand that the reward center of our brain does not register rewards the same way as those without ADHD. So we have to bring that reward closer, and we have to deliver it more frequently. And parents, this works for kids too. So when we have goals, we want to really take it one step at a time. It's very common for people with ADHD to get really motivated, and then they go at something at 200%, and then it lasts for about 2 weeks, if that. So if you want to make bigger progress, you got to take smaller steps and make them very incremental. You want them to almost feel like they're too easy. So we need to create systems. In order to increase our productivity, we need systems really for everything. We need systems for managing our time, our memory, to input and capture our thoughts and ideas and things that we need to do. We need systems for processing. As we need systems for our systems, and no, this is not redundant. We actually do need systems for our systems. We need systems for motivation and for reviewing how we are doing. Because we have to be intentional about this. For a lot of people, it comes naturally, but for us, when we don't have systems for it, we're going through life on autopilot, and it doesn't work. So when we are trying to figure this all out, when we're trying to figure out our goals, our priorities, our tasks, how to manage our time, we have to really break this stuff down and focus on one thing at a time and really get a good handle on one component of this at a time. So if you don't use timers and or a watch, if you don't have reminders set for yourself, I would highly recommend starting there. So once you figure out the time and your ability to both predict how long things take, and you're doing a good job at monitoring the time, then you can apply that to the tasks. So you have your to-dos, your appointments with yourself, so you begin to know how long actual tasks take. Then you add these things to your calendar. Now, one of the things, now if you are familiar with David Allen's getting things done methodology, he talks about having your to-do list and then just looking to see what you can do during the day. I think for ADHD, I think it's really important that we schedule those tasks into our calendar, making appointments with ourselves. And then once we are doing that, that's when all of this comes together as really almost like a grand plan, where we can begin to look further than just today, just right now. We can begin to look at the week, the month, 3 months, and so on. Because once you develop the skills of managing time, managing your tasks, and organizing and keeping that calendar, these skills that help you project things longer and into further down the road become easier because it's the same skill set. But you have to truly begin at where is that 15-minute increment. Know how long 15 minutes is. Start by taking tasks and guessing how long they're going to take, and then actually check to see if you are right. So while you're looking at the slide, I'm going to take a quick sip of water. Okay. So when we're thinking about time, reading time and knowing how to tell time is not the same thing as understanding time. I often work with people who say they just don't have enough time to do everything, and sometimes they're absolutely right. So you really need to look at how do you spend your time. If you have a typical work week, and let's say you are working for 8 or 9 hours a day, you sleep for 8 hours, hopefully. You spend an hour of your day or so eating, you spend an hour of your day, in the bathroom. Really be honest, how long do things take in your life? Then if you're adding exercise, maybe your commute, chores, spending time with your family, then you have 2 hours left. So knowing what you can actually get done with the time that you have is really important, because sometimes you are doing a great job at being productive and managing your stuff. It's just that maybe you're overscheduling yourself. So it's really important to really know, not just feel, but know how you're spending your time. And one of the things to understand too is that when you have ADHD, it's like you're having they call it myopia, time myopia, where you can't really see far into the future. And I just noticed that the font on this slide is a little cut off, so I apologize about that. But it says, how do we see what we have to do today for something due next week? So without ADHD, you see it clearly. With ADHD, it's blurry and fuzzy. Because I tell you, I was scrambling at the last minute to do a couple of things for this webinar because it wasn't coming to my mind. So one of the things I will do as soon as I'm done with this webinar is I'm going to take some notes and have a file that I'm going to keep in Evernote regarding the checklist that I'm going to create for myself for the next time that I do this. As time management is self-management. So the next couple slides that I'm going to show you are a few of my favorite time tools. And all of the tools that I'm going to show you are available on my website, and if you click on the store tab, or on Amazon. And from my website, these are all just Amazon links, so I get a couple pennies when you buy stuff through my website, which is ADHDrewired.com or erictivers.com. So that's my watch, and on my watch, it's called a chronograph, and the top right button, when I push it, what happens is that top circle, the small circle on top, it will start elapsing forward, and it's one button to push, and so I use it to monitor time. Let's say when I'm with a client, or I'm going to the store and I want to try to get in and out because I hate shopping, and I have a whole episode on my podcast about survival tips for shopping. All right, I want to show you some pretty inexpensive time tools that are really good for monitoring time. This is the time timer. This is one of my favorite timers, and because it's so easy to set, there is an app for it, but having that physical, tangible timer right in front of you is great. The way it works is you slide the disc for the length of time that you want to set it for, and then it just basically disappears back inside a slit that you can't see once the time is up. So that's time timer. The next one that I really like is the time tracker, and specifically the time tracker mini. The reason I like this one, it gives you, so you set it up for 2 hours and it's in 5-minute increments, and you set it for each dial is 5 minutes. And so that's the green dial. The yellow dial is your warning time. So once it hits the warning time, it'll start flashing yellow, and it stays flashing yellow. So that's awesome. It's really easy to set. So the other one that's bigger is twice as expensive and super complicated to set. So I don't recommend that one, but I do recommend the Time Tracker Mini. Okay, the next one that I don't have a link to on my website, so you can go to mypowerclock.com. This one is great. It's super easy to set. When it's open, so it's on a little stand, and when it's open, it will play a little song, and actually you can hear it on my the episode all about time tools on my podcast. But when you close it, it vibrates. You can put it in your pocket. So that's called mypowerclock.com. All right, let's talk about a couple apps. Okay. So the Pomodoro technique is Pomodoro, I think, means tomato in Italian. So it comes from this idea that you take tasks. It's a unifocused task that you spend 25 minutes doing, and so you set your timer for 25 minutes. And then you take a break, and you only do one task for 25 minutes. If you start multitasking, doing other things, you have to start the timer over. Okay, then after each 25-minute period, you take a 3 to 5 minute break. Now think about what is it hard for you to shift away from. If you can't go on Facebook for 3 to 5 minutes, then this should not be your break. The things that I do for my for the Pomodoro break, and I use this technique often, is sometimes I go through mail because I don't like doing that, and I know that, okay, so that's only 3 to 5 minutes. I can go through paperwork or open mail for 3 to 5 minutes. Sometimes I'll do jumping jacks. I'll get my heart rate up a little bit, which helps me focus. I'll go to the bathroom, get a drink of water, take a real quick walk. The reason this is a great tool for ADHD, a great strategy for ADHD, is if you have a tendency to kind of get locked in and hyper focus, it kind of forces you to shift your attention so it doesn't lock in. So for me, when I'm really having a good day, I can get through about 7 Pomodoros. Now, after 4 Pomodoros, you take a little bit of a longer break. And there's different timers and apps that you can do this with. The one that you see for Apple is the one that you're seeing on the screen there. And there's lots of different Pomodoro apps out there. And you don't have to do it for 25 minutes. You can do it for 15 minutes. Figure out what works best for you, but then take that brief break and then you get back to work. But set a timer for your break. 3030 is an app that is only on iOS, and I'm going to try to show you both iOS apps and Android-based apps. I am an Apple person. All my products are Apple-based, so the things that I put on here that are not Apple-based were based on either recommendations from people I know, clients I work with, or from my own research. But this is 3030, and you can really use the Pomodoro technique with this one. So you can create a timed to-do list, you can save them as folders. So as you see on the screen here is that, so you can have, let's say you have a break in your day that was maybe even unexpected, and you know that you've mapped out how long it takes you to go through your workout routine. So you can have this saved file, you open it up, and then you pull it up and you can see if you have enough time to go through everything, and for each kind of subtask you could see if you're on time. The cool thing that I also like about this is that it will tell you what time it will be when you're done with both each part and the total time. And this circle, once you push play in the middle there, this circle will be kind of like a time timer where it has that visual elapsed time. That's 3030. And I'm pretty sure that that's a free app. Okay, this is another one that's just for iOS, so sorry, Android users. But there are other apps that are like this. So this is called Discourse, and it's similar to that visual timer. It's actually designed for giving presentations. And what it does is you can set it for, I think, up to 2 or 3 hours. And what you do is you set your total time, then you set your warning time, and then you set your stop time. Now, here's the thing that I think is really important to think about. It takes time to stop. So stopping takes time. We don't actually just stop on a dime. So the things that are involved in stopping is cleaning things up, closing the files on your computer, writing the notes of where you left off so it's easy to pick back up when you resume that task. Okay, the thing that I love about this, though, is that after your time is done, it will keep tracking time for you. So as you see on the right-hand side of your screen there, it says 1 minute over, and it will keep time for you. Because on most timers, if you are setting a timer for half an hour or an hour and the time runs out, the alarm goes off, what do a lot of us do? We push snooze or we push stop on the alarm, and now what? So we need to have the monitoring of time covered for all parts of time. Minutes to Go is a great audible alarm, and what this one does is it will actually speak to you and give you those transitional warnings, and it will say something. It'll sound like 5 minutes to go. Again, on the episode I have on time tools, I actually have an audio clip of what this timer sounds like. Okay, so the next one here is called Wake and Shake. Now this is available for both Android and iOS. So what this one does, I call this a brain-wise alarm, because the only way to turn the alarm off is you have to vigorously shake it. And why is that a brain-wise alarm? Because when you have to vigorously shake it in order to shut the alarm off, that's going to pump blood to your brain and it will arouse you. So, and there's different settings, and you can even post your successes on Facebook. So, and there's different achievements that you can earn as well. So, and there's a great video on YouTube. So, not now, but when we're all done with this, you can go over to YouTube and just do a search for this. Okay, the next two alarm apps I'm going to show you are very similar. This one is for the Apple Store. The next one I'm going to show you is for Android. This is called Freaky Alarm. So this alarm uses a couple different things. One is you have to solve different math problems. So you might need to have your calculator handy in order to turn it off. But here's what I really, really like about this. So I'm going to give you an example of something in my life and how I use this. So sometimes I have a hard time transitioning home. I get stuck in a project late at night. And so what I will do is I will create an alarm that uses a UPC code that I have at home. And the only way to shut off the alarm is to actually scan the item that is at home. So that is called Freaky Alarm. And this does virtually the same thing. This is called NFC Puzzle Alarm Clock, and that's available on the Google Play Store. Okay, so it's important that we capture things. And so we got to capture basically everything now. But here's the trick. We have to then process. So what do we capture? Well, everything. Thoughts that you have, ideas, things that you have to do, things that you want to do, things that you want to remember or need to remember. Capturing where did you leave off on a project? Where do you want to go next? Don't count on your working memory to keep track of that information. So you leave these kind of trails for yourself, reminding yourself where you were. Write down the mistakes that you made, that you realize that you made, things that your boss or your spouse tells you. If it's something you want to do and you intend on doing, you have to capture it. Do not count on your memory. What you should do is count on your memory failing you. And there are lots of different ways to capture it. You can, from writing it down to using voice dictation, taking a picture, using sticky notes, notebooks, using a calendar, telling somebody. So I'm going to show you some tools right now on how to capture some of these things. So in every ADHD survival kit, there has to be Post-it notes. And I specifically advise using Post-its super sticky Post-it note. Now, I'm not an affiliate, well, I have an Amazon link for them. The reason I love the super sticky brand sticky notes is because they don't fall off. I have a hard enough time remembering what I have to do. If I'm going to create a sticky note, I cannot afford to lose its stickiness. So that's super sticky note. And the picture that you're seeing there, I often will use this as a strategy in my car. So I'm fortunate enough that my commute to work is very close. I have a 2-minute commute. I basically cut through my neighborhood and I'm to and from my office. So if I need to go to the store, I have to go a different way, and it'll be really easy for me to go into autopilot, as I mentioned before, and forget. So if I know that I need to make a stop before I go home, I will use this strategy. So I put it on my steering wheel, and it's there, and it reminds me as soon as I get back in my car. Now, Evernote has recently teamed up with Sticky Note, and it gives you the ability to tag the different colored sticky notes and kind of pre-sort and pre-organize them in a variety of ways in Evernote. So for a long time, I actually did not really care for Evernote, but I recently have kind of rediscovered it. So if you're not familiar with Evernote, it's an online tool that's available on all platforms, iOS, Android, BlackBerry, and the computer. It describes itself as a freemium software, and it's basically designed for note-taking and archiving. It can be used simply or complexly. So a note can be a piece of text, it can be a web page, a photo, a voice memo, it can be a handwritten ink note. You can have notes that have file attachments, and then you can even sort them into folders and have them tagged and annotated. I've gone back and forth between using Evernote and not using it, but I've really been digging it a lot lately and really have been using it as a master tool in my productivity tool belt. So one of the things I would recommend is just doing a YouTube search at some point if you're thinking about getting into Evernote to learn some tips. So something that I've recently started doing with Evernote, you can, when you have an Evernote account, you have an Evernote email address, and you can find that in your settings. And so what you can do is you save that to your address book, and when you get emails, you can forward it to the Evernote account. Now, I recently sent out an email describing some tricks that you can do with your subject line, and it has to do with how you can use the @ symbol to have it placed directly into a specific folder. You can use an exclamation point with the word tomorrow or a specific date or time, and it will create an alarm within Evernote. And you can use the hashtag in your subject line to tag it to make it easier to search and find. As the more I use Evernote, the better it actually becomes as a tool, because it learns how things are related in ways that you might not even realize are related. Okay, so we get some of our best ideas at some of the best places where we can't really write them down, except for now. So you can use things like Aqua Notes, which are basically, it's a pad that writes underwater. Now, for me, this would not work because I can't see at all without my glasses on. But I thought that's a pretty cool tool for capturing good ideas. Now, I've been telling people for a long time that I've been really wanting to paint a wall in my office with Idea Paint. And Idea Paint turns any non-porous surface into a dry erase board. The LiveScribe Smart Pen was something that I used a lot before I got my iPad, and I'm actually been thinking a lot lately about getting another one. So what the LiveScribe Smart Pen does is it uses special paper, and it digitally encodes it while it's recording audio. And what's really neat, so when you're writing notes while you're maybe in a meeting and it's recording audio, then when you go back, you could tap on the specific area of writing, and it will play back specifically what was being said at that moment that you were writing it. Great tool for meetings, and especially if you're a student. If I ever decide to go back to school for my PhD, I will definitely be using this as a tool, because sometimes it's best to get out of the screens and into just pen and paper. I think our brain processes information that we write a bit better than it does that we type, but everybody is different, and you got to just know yourself. And it will sync to Evernote. So what do you call a phone that reads your mind? A smartphone. But ching. It's hard to know if you guys actually found that funny when I feel like I'm talking to myself on the webinar. Okay. If you listen to the podcast, you often know that I have a sense of humor that often makes myself laugh, and probably not many others. So thanks for putting up with it. I think the best thing to happen to ADHD since Ritalin is Siri with location-based reminders, and now also with Google Now, which is available on Android as well, which uses a lot of the same features as Siri. So one of the things that it does is it uses the concept of points of performance. So the point of performance is remembering to take the right action at the right place and time. Before location-based reminders, the only way we can remind ourselves to do things is based on time. So when we think about time, there are two ways that we can think about time. There's clock time and sequential time. When we think about the placement of our reminders, we have to think about our senses. The reminder that's visual, so the alert that comes up on our computer or our phone, the auditory reminder, the chirp that we hear, or a tactile reminder like the vibration on our phone. So thinking about those as how we get those cues. So, and then it has to be at that right place. So if the doggy wants to remember to wipe his paws, he needs to put it on the doggy door. So I love my iPhone. It's I think a lot of people will agree that it's my power tool. So I can say things like remind me when I get home, remind me when I get to work, remind me when I leave, or remind me when I get to Home Depot. So all right, if you are an iPhone user, you have to set up the specific stores that you go to often. So if it's like Home Depot, you have to put it in your own address. So under your own name, you can label the instead of it being cell phone with the address, it's going to be Home Depot with the address. And you can say, remind me when I get to Home Depot or Jewel or whatever it is. With Google Now, what it does is it uses all the information from Google. So when you get to any Home Depot, it will remind you of that thing that you want to get. So you have to say, OK, Google, and it will respond to you. And it will say, remind me to get the milk next time I'm at the Jewel, and it will do that. Now, every phone, from what I understand, is different. Some phones will just automatically launch this when you just speak it. Some of it you have to open the app. Some of them, well, there's different functions for all of them. So just play with it, but that is available on both iOS and Android. Okay. Some of you may have seen my video that I created about mind mapping. I love, love, love mind mapping. It is great if you're a visual, non-linear thinker. It allows you to organize thoughts in what seems like a way that's not connected, and when you're all done with it, you see it in organized format. So you can be thinking about a subtopic of A, and then the next thing that comes to your mind is a sort of related topic that's like a subheading of F, and you can kind of get it out of your head that way. But when you're all done, it all fits together, and you can manipulate, with your mouse or tactilely on your touchscreen device. So I love mind mapping. I use Simple Mind, and it's available for all platforms. Priority Matrix is another really, really great tool for getting things done. So it uses what's referred to as the Eisenhower method, which is that the whole idea of important versus urgent. But you can create and customize this in so many different ways. One of the other things that's really neat about Priority Matrix is, similarly to Evernote, where you can forward an email to Evernote, you can also forward emails to Priority Matrix. You can customize the sizes of the squares, what they're called, and it has templates, so you don't have to think of them yourself. I use this for my weekly and quarterly and annual goal planning. I also use this for specific projects related to the podcast, related to my website. I also use this to help keep track of specific clients, and it also has the ability to collaborate with others. So that's Priority Matrix, and I highly, highly recommend it. Epic Win is a gamified to-do list. It uses the it's called an RPG, a role-playing game mindset as a to-do list. So it's a to-do list, but it adds a fun kind of spin to it. As we have so many inboxes that you might not even think about as inboxes. But this is, in the getting things done methodology, this is, David Allen refers to all of these things as our inboxes. From our actual mail to our voicemail to our email to all of these things, our piles, our receipts, the things that need to be dealt with are considered our inbox. And one of the things that I think that often people fall short of, and I really realized this just a few years ago, I was capturing everything, but I wasn't processing everything. And I'm just going to call it what it is. The processing part can be kind of boring, but this is where the actual the magic happens. This is where your good ideas get actually put into a plan. If you capture everything but don't process any of it, it's not really good. It's just going to create anxiety, and you're going to feel overwhelmed by all the things that you have to do. We all get, I'm sure, way too much email. So this has been for a while one of my favorite mail apps. It uses the Get Things Done methodology of delete, delegate, respond, defer, and do. So the GTD method really recommends that while you are processing your recommends this while you're processing your inbox. So if you can do it, and this is what based on the GTD method says, that if you can do it in under 2 minutes, do it now. Now, I don't always follow that, but I do try to. You can defer it to later with this app, which is one of my favorite things. Now, you know, we in theory, we've all probably heard that you just want to handle something once, which is great in theory. But in practice, we know that there are times that we just can't figure out what we need to do with these specific things. So, what I'll do is you can swipe, come back to me later, and you can determine when you want it to come back to you, and it will pop back up onto the top of your email list. And it works with Gmail and a lot of other mail systems. So it's just amazing. I can't recommend this one more. So at some point, the end of last year, I heard of the concept called Inbox Zero. And that's basically the idea of going through your inbox each day and getting it to zero. So this is something to achieve, to strive towards. I'm going to tell you, I don't always do it, but I try. Okay. So at some point last year, I had something like, I think it was 28 or 29,000 unread emails in my inbox. So I made a commitment to myself, and I did. I spent about an hour a day to process as much as I could from the current date and then going backwards. And I set up all these email filters, and I unsubscribed to a lot of things that I just wasn't interested anymore. I signed up for something called Unroll Me. And Unroll Me creates a daily digest of all the subscriptions that you actually want, but rolls it into one email. And I love it because it's there, but it doesn't clutter up your inbox. So by the end of the year, I had reduced my email from about 28,000 to about 13,000, and then I declared email bankruptcy. So with the digital space, you can just archive everything, and that's what I did. And it was an awesome but kind of weird feeling. I don't recommend it often, but sometimes you just got to do it because it's like dead weight that is just pulling you down. So with technology, we don't have to count on our own willpower anymore to do certain things. As remember, willpower, just like motivation, is not a character component. It is actually, part of it is related to dopamine. How much energy do we have and how much effort can we spend to doing certain things? So don't count on your willpower to get stuff done. Use technology. Rescue Time is a really good tool that will allow you to use technology in this way. So you can use it as, and I use a free version of Rescue Time, and it really helps you see what you are doing online. Now, there is an app for Android, so that also helps you see what you're doing with your phone, but there's not for iOS yet. So this works in the background, and you can set up different goals and categories, and really helps you see what you are doing with your time. It will also, you can set goals, and it will give you notifications to see if you are spending time where you want to be spending it. Okay, now there's another one called anti-social. So it's anti-social.cc. And what this does is it will block specific sites that you indicate that you want blocked for certain periods of time. So if you want to block Facebook, email, anything that's basically social, the social part of the internet, it will block it. Now the next one I really like, and that's Mac Freedom. And don't be confused, it's not just for Macs. So Mac Freedom locks everything from the internet. And the thing that's cool about this, and why I think this is a really ADHD friendly kind of tool, is, like a lot of these things, there are ways around it. But in order to get back onto the internet, if you already set this and pre-schedule it, you have to reset your computer. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm going to guess that probably at least half of the people in this room, and I should have set up a poll beforehand, but maybe you can just comment in the chat box. Hold on, I need a sip of water. You can comment in the chat box whether or not, if you have 10, 15, 20 windows open at a time. Part of the reason is we don't want to forget what we're working on. So with this is a really motivating thing that if you want to get back onto the internet, you're going to have to save all your documents and shut down your computer and start it back up. So that can be often enough to block you from the internet. Because complexity it will increase as you develop that mastery. Okay, like everything, skills build on themselves. So you don't learn algebra before you can add. Driving is simple when you know how. Most things is like that. Brain surgery is easier when you know how. Don't do brain surgery if you don't know how, though. But so creating goals and tracking time, getting more done is easy when you've learned the foundational skills. Let me rephrase it. It's easier when you've learned the foundational skills. But our operating system did not come pre-programmed to understand time and time-based tasks, but we can learn. Here's an app called Chronos, and I use this frequently. And what's nice about this is it kind of works in the background. You set it up, and you can train it to increase its accuracy, but you can create different categories of things, and it will give you these awesome kind of infographic emails regarding what you've been doing. So whether it's sleep goals, exercise goals, commuting time, and so this is one of those things where you can set it up, and then you can kind of forget about it, and it will give you all this really cool information. Calendars are a staple of our productivity tool belt. I really would recommend you guys check out episode 9 of ADHD Rewired, because I really dive in deep on the use of calendars. Here's an app that should just be on board with all smartphones that is not. These both do the same thing. I use AutoSilent because, as I said, I'm an app user. What AutoSilent does is it uses your calendar, and it will automatically turn off your alarm during appointments and scheduled events, and you can indicate which calendars to do this from, and it will turn it back on after the event is over. You can also set a timer for when you want it to be silent. You can also set a geofence for when you want it to be silent. So let's say when you're at your office, you just want your phone on silent when you're at your office. Or let's say you travel and you see clients, you don't want your phone to ring during that time. You put in the address of the place you're going to be, and it will silence that phone as long as you are in that area. And when you leave the area, it will turn back on again. As far as the geofencing part, I don't know if the Silence Schedule Premium does that, but I know that AutoSilence does. As having our stuff in the cloud is good. All right, so the idea of keeping everything, sharing nothing is Google hoarding. Keep everything and sharing everything is Google Drive. Everything everywhere, that's my office. So I've shared with you a lot of apps, but one thing to really think about is that every time, if you feel like you want to download another app, another to-do app, I would really recommend you turn off your computer and complete one task first. Because guys, here's the thing, the apps, they don't do the work for us. I think that there is a misconception that it does. The apps are things that help us capture information. They help us maybe prioritize it. They help us see what we need to do. It reminds us of things at the right time, but we have to do the work. So it can be as simple as pen and paper. It can be as complex as some of these apps that I shared with you. And you can hear a lot more about these apps on my podcast. So even when we know what to do, we don't always do what we know. As you may know, that I have launched the ADHD Rewired Coaching and Accountability Group. This is the group that I created that I want for myself. So, because even when you know the skills, actually doing it is something different. So, I'm going to give you, if you have not watched the video yet, and I'm going to switch back over for just 1 second here, and hopefully this will work. So what I just did is if you go into the pop-ins, I clicked a link, and don't have to click on it immediately. You can wait till the end. But I made a link available that will allow you to see a whole video about this, about the coaching group. So what this coaching group is, and I'm going to show you just kind of an overview of what it is. It's going to help you deal with the things that you feel maybe weighed down by. If you have a hard time, starting things or finishing things, if you get stuck thinking about things instead of doing things, if you would like to be more consistent, if you feel like, I got all this taken care of, then, you can tune out and end the webinar, because I'm going to show you now what some of the features, what some of the value that you're going to get if you decide to be part of this coaching group. The big thing here is accountability partners. When we are accountable to somebody else, it's amazing how much more stuff we get done. We have a very active and growing Facebook community. So if you go to ADHD Rewired on Facebook, we have a community group that you have to request to be in, and you'll introduce yourself and I'll let you in. But we've been doing a lot of these things where we'll post our daily tasks, some of our bigger goals, and it's just incredible how much I've increased my productivity. So a big component to this group is going to be daily check-ins. So in our daily check-ins, I have set up a secret Facebook group, and you can post your to-do list, and we're going to get encouragement from each other. You're going to get specific tips and feedback from me, and I'm going to be available for live coaching 5 days a week for a minimum of 30 minutes per day, Monday through Friday. And each day is going to have a different focus. And if you want to learn more about what that entails, check out the video that it will direct you to the link on the pop-in tab. But don't do it until we're all done here. And I'm going to help you guys figure out what are the apps and tools that are going to be good for your productivity. So if you feel a little overwhelmed by some of the things that you saw today, this group will be great for you. So this is the banner of what the secret coaching group looks like. So a lot of this will be taking place in Facebook in a secret group. And if you're not on Facebook, or you're concerned about people seeing you in this group, I am giving you permission to set up an alias use your real first name, but when you're actually in the group, let people know if it's not your real last name, just if you do have any of those privacy concerns. But we're also going to be using this format too, the webinar format, for some of the live coaching. So this is going to be for 3 months, Monday through Friday, and you're going to have support available every day through the accountability aspect of this group. As this group is really affordable. You can do it as low as $199 a month if you do the installment plan, or you can do it right now for $679. This is a 3-month coaching plan. With talking to some other people, they said that I should be charging about $4,000 for this. Well, I'm not. So you can go to the link that is in the pop-ins on the pop-ins tab, and you can see the video and see the breakdown of the pricing. So I'm going to switch back over to the video feed now, and I'm going to answer any questions that you have. Okay, I'm just reacclimating myself here. Okay, hello, here I am. And let's see. So I just checked how many people are still in the room. We have 23, which means I only lost 2 people during the group. Awesome, that's very, very exciting. Did I mention that there are only 2 spots left right now in the accountability group? So if it fills up, I'm going to basically be going in the place that you were when you placed the order on the link. So I'm going to switch over to the chat bar. Okay, let's see. I saw Grant say, "What? We have to do the work?" Okay, so I see it. Here's a question. Any bad tools or apps to avoid? How many is too many tools? You know what, Donna, that's an awesome question. I'm going to show you something, and this might be helpful if I can get it to display properly. I'm going to show you what the first screen on my iPhone looks like, and hopefully it will. Yeah, I think you guys can see that. It doesn't have a lot of stuff. It has the essentials. Okay, so how many is too many? Well, if you're, I mean, I recommend using just one to-do list, just one calendar. I think it's important to mix it up sometimes though, but only be using one at a time. If you feel like you need to mix it up because you need that novelty, I would recommend making a big switch over. Make sure you're transferring things over, and then just use that one. So I hope that was helpful. Okay, I'm looking through, see lots of notes I'm looking for, and I'm hoping that people use the question tab. Oh, Winona has a question. Will there be a slide share of sorts available after to view the slides at a clearer resolution? Oh, so the resolution wasn't very clear. Winona, thank you for that, letting me know that. I could definitely do that. Um, I'm thinking about what would be the best way to do that. Here's what I will do, because I know that I will have a list of everyone who has signed up for this webinar, and I will send a link with the slides on there. How does that sound? I'm looking for other questions. Out of curiosity, how was everybody's stream? I had someone tell me that it was a little bit choppy. They also did say that they were on Wi-Fi. Oh, I guess this chat, I'm thinking it goes in reverse order. Okay. Grant asked, what is your experience with the app Things? I have none. I've never used that app. I've heard people use it and like it, but I have not used it myself. So, okay, let me go back to the polls for a moment, and you can continue to post questions. So I'm going to stay on here for a while. I know that maybe some of you might need to go back to work, but you don't have to. I'm not your boss, though. Let's see. Let me take a look at what is on the polls. So right now I'm looking at the my second the other computer that I have, and right now I'm watching a spinning beach ball, which is not very helpful. Um, so let's see on the polls. End poll. So I'm going to end the poll regarding what kind of smartphone you have. And no, I don't think I asked that one. I asked. I'm having a little some ADHD moments here. Hang on. I'm going to reorient myself. So the poll that you see right now is how did you learn about the webinar? And 44% of you by email, and 28% from the ADHD Rewired community. Awesome, awesome. And then 17% outside the ADHD Rewired community. That's awesome. Okay, now let's do this one. I had just posted a poll, and I'll give you guys a few moments to respond to it. What kind of smartphone do you have? The choices are iPhone, Android, other smartphone, and I don't have a smartphone. So I'll give you a moment to do that. Once you do that, I'm going to check the chat box here. Grant, have an awesome vacation. Oh, there's a question about the hours for the coaching. So what I'm going to do is it's going to be at kind of a rotating hours, but it's going to be near the is most of it's going to be between the hours of 10 and 2 p.m. But I'm also going to be doing some later. Some of it will depend on my schedule. Um, but the other component of it is that a lot of it will not need you don't need to actually be present live, because one of the things that you can do is you could submit questions early, and I will respond to that. And you can just like, and if you're already a part of the ADHD Rewired community group, you know that you can post your task list, and um, keep checking back with us during the day. So I really thought this through because I wanted it to really be as adaptable for everybody's schedule, and I will tweak as needed as we go. So I hope that that is a helpful um, answer for you. Let's see, am I missing any questions? Any apps for students? Jill, what age students? A couple things. Let's see. Donna isn't being data. Okay, privacy questions. So, here's the thing. I think that I mean, it's funny that I was very late to the game to getting onto Facebook because of that. But this is where people are. So, I'm now doing a lot of stuff on social media because I want to be able to interact with people. You know, big data, in some for some people sounds scary. To me, it doesn't bother me as much. I think if Big Brother is watching, and then maybe he'll tell me where I put my keys next time I lose them. The Apple is launching the health app store. Um, I think in the next few months, and it's already like a $12 billion I think industry, and it hasn't even launched yet. And I think one of the things that's really going to make possible is really fine tuning health outcomes for all kinds of health issues related to serious medical issues or things like ADHD, where we currently have the location-based reminders, but that will remind us of something within like a 100-foot radius. What I want is to be reminded when I sit down at my chair at my computer and get those kinds of reminders. And when you can get that real-time feedback with your environment, I just think that big data has a lot of really promising potential. I know we don't know for sure what is going to happen with it, but I do think in the end that it will be privacy concerns will be changed. I think the important thing, as long as people know that what information is being shared. That's what I found that most people want to, as long as they are aware of what the limitations to the privacy are, then they are okay. What sleep tracking apps? So I absolutely love the app Sleep Tracker. I use it every single night. It's for iOS. Um, I don't know if that one is for Android. Um, what I would recommend is do a search on your app stores and read the reviews. If there's an app that only has a few reviews, also look at prior versions, because the way the App Store works is every time an app developer releases an update, it will refresh its ratings. So you can see an app that only has 10 ratings because they just released an update, but if you click the older versions or previous versions, it will actually show you they have maybe 3,000 positive reviews. Any thoughts on wearable technology, Bluetooth? Yeah, so I love the idea of wearable technology. I've been thinking for a while about getting a Pebble, which is a watch that pushes information to you. I'm still been thinking about going for a Google Glass. Just having that information pushed to you, I think, is awesome. Okay, I'm going to switch back to the polls here for a moment. I'm going to end the poll in about 15 seconds. So if you have not voted on what kind of smartphone you have, go ahead and do that right now. Okay, and I'm going to end the poll. Okay, wow. The Android um, out wins over the iPhone and other smartphone. Okay, and nobody said they don't have a smartphone. Okay, usually there's one in every crowd. Um, okay, very cool. All right, let's see. So I've just launched another poll, and this one is asking, have you registered for the ADHD Rewired Coaching Program? And you can choose yes, no, or thinking about it. Did I mention that registration is closing in a few hours and there's only 2 spots left? While you guys are voting on that, I'm going to go back to the chat room to see what you guys are talking about. Assignments and projects. Jill, I think I maybe didn't finish my thought earlier when you asked that question. There's a lot going on here with this. I have 2 computers and some other stuff going on to keep myself, so I have all the information I need. Okay, so now would also be a good time to, not in a few moments, to head on over to the where I had the pop-ins, because I created that link right to the ADHD Rewired video for the coaching group, and where you can register. And just in case the pop-ins isn't working, I'm going to post a link here. Give me just a moment here. This is truly a feat of multitasking. So I'm just on my website right now, and there are only 6 hours left to register for the group, and there are only 2 spots left. And I'm going to go ahead and post the link where you can register for the group. Dennis said he's not getting any of the polls. Are you on mobile? If you are on mobile, push the done on your video stream, and then you'll be able to see the webinar options, how you interact. Although let me just make sure I populated the poll. Yeah, it looks like I did. So I did post a link to sign up for the coaching group and to that video that I mentioned in both the chat room, or if you click on the in the pop-ins window and click on that get started, it will also bring you to that link. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys just another 30 seconds here to let me know if you have registered for the group or you are thinking about it. And guys, remember, you can do a payment plan for $199 a month for over 4 months. So it really makes it really, really affordable. So that's like what is that, $50 a week? I mean, think about the projects that you've been wanting to do, the to-do list that you've been, that have been sitting there. But this is taking your productivity to the next level. I'm the type of person that tends to underpromise and over-deliver. So, one of the things that I'm going to be doing during the coaching group is creating some specific kind of content products that I'm going to be, in a sense, piloting with the group. So things that will be for sale later or going to be offered for free to the group. Get to see it for the first time. So whether it's a specific a video on a specific topic or things kind of related to that. So I'm going to end the poll here in just a moment. Can we do this a few more seconds? Okay, so we got 30% of the people in this group said yes. We got 28% that said thinking about it. If you were thinking about it, would you mind going to the chat, and you can actually send me either a private message or you can email me. I'm going to put my email address right here in the chat window. Or if you were on Facebook, you can message me there. Candace says, ironically, the coaching requires planning for the funding and planning to take on the commitment to follow through with coaching, as opposed to signing up and not sticking with it. Candace, you're right. You're absolutely right. This is a high intensity coaching program. This is, I would not call this a casual coaching program by any means. If you're like really trying to achieve some big stuff and you're not making the progress you want to be making, or maybe you need that just extra support to kind of get started with that big project. This is, I'm telling you, this is a group that I've created for myself, and I like to be productive. I like to get things done. I'm, as an entrepreneur with ADHD, I'm always coming up with that next big thing, and there's always a lot of steps and a lot of projects. But it's also going to be the stuff like cleaning up your room, or taking care of that pile of paper, or making those phone calls. I know that we have one member that's already signed up for the group who posts in our community group how often are their phone call goals for the day. So, and she's been realizing, if you're posting these things, that she had a more accurate picture of how long her phone calls take, and creates benchmark goals. And she's just been really has shared that she's increased a lot of her productivity and awareness of how she's spending her time, and it's just been awesome to see. Dennis said still no poll. Dennis, what kind of device are you on? Let's see. So what other questions? So Julius, so if my son was to use this group during the school year for extra help, would this be the right group? So anything that has to do with coaching, the person that is involved in it has to want to be there. So if they have verbalized to you that they would like to have coaching and that accountability for them, then I would say yes. I think we have 2 or 3 college students in our group right now. and which is great because it gives you, when you're a college student, there's so many kind of checkpoints, whether it's whether it's papers, reading. We have a music student in the group who has to practice, and sometimes she puts that off, so she's using the group to be accountable for that. What are dates? Donna, I forgot to mention that. Thank you, Donna. Dates for the group. It's starting the first week in September. Let's see. I'm trying to make sure I didn't miss any questions. Dennis, so Dennis said, I'm part American Indian, so if I do a pole dance, maybe that will work. Android, not Apple. Candace says that no one at work knows that knows about ADHD, and the workplace, I would recommend not doing that. There are I think, few work environments where sharing your ADHD is a good idea, and I do have an episode about this on the podcast. Well, Candace, I'm so happy to hear that you are listening to my podcast and to and from work and while you're knitting. So has everyone seen the video yet? I did post in the pop-ins, and I post the link, and I'm gonna post the link just again here. I can display it as a sticky. That's cool. So we're gonna wrap this up in just a few minutes. Are there any specific questions that you guys still have about the coaching group that I could answer for you? You can also schedule on my website a 20-minute consultation with me on the link that I just posted. There's a blue bar right under the video that will allow you to set up an appointment with me. But I would encourage you to act now. In fear of sounding like a car salesman, act now. No, but seriously, there's 2 spots left. I'm not even sure. I gotta check to see if there's even any spots left. Um, my PayPal app says unavailable at the moment. So I'm hoping that doesn't mean because there's lots of activity, although it could be a good thing. So any questions you still have? And the final question I really would like to know is what would have made this webinar, since this was my first one doing self-hosted, what would have made this better? I love feedback. I was talking to one of my colleagues yesterday, and I said that feedback for me is like a drug. I kind of get high in it because I love self-improvement. So you could share it in the group. You can share it with me privately. Anything that you would recommend that could make it better. And you can also share with me what you thought was good about it. What did you like about it? Okay, I saw Tony say that he looks forward to doing coaching soon. Does that mean you've signed up? Higher resolution on the slides. Okay, I'll try to figure out how to do that. But none of it. So the time delay was a bit disorienting. I can I get it. Yeah, I know. I'm not sure if I have an answer for that, um, but it is something that I'm looking into. I agree with you. Even if you do not, Tony likes a nicer backdrop. Tony, if you actually knew what this backdrop was, okay, so you guys are the last, the guys that stick around. So here comes where I pulled on the curtain. So this is like this like sensory based blanket over a trifold. Um, I'll have you know I just spilled my water. All right, things get messy after a while. So it's one of these display boards, and now I'll show you that I was covering up my messy work area. Don't worry, we're all okay. So I just thought that my background was a little distracting, but full disclosure, this is who I am. I just thought it would be easier to focus without having that in the background. So the inside scoop. I just wanted to touch the background. That's awesome. I'm guessing the oh no is because I spilled the water. So, I mean, this whole time delay thing is kind of annoying. Okay, so Pat prefers the Adobe Connect layout used by other webinars. Oh, you do prefer this layout. Yeah, because I've done Adobe Connect and it's there's a lot of stuff going on. Dennis, did you just sign up for the group? Okay, so if someone signed up for the group, why don't you write in here that you signed up? No, that's not really what I consider a mess. It's trust me, if I could angle my computer, but I don't want to unplug anything. There's other piles. No, this is organized chaos. All right, any last minute questions? Anybody, please, if you have not checked out the video that I posted the link to, please do so. Also, I would recommend if you're not already on my email list, just go to my website. There'll be a pop-up where you can sign up for it, so you can get um, other information that I put out. And I don't put out newsletters that often. And thank you for coming. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you sticking around. So we got this all in about an hour and a half, and there were no major technology snafus other than just the delays of the uh, of me coming over to you, which is not a snafu. It's just the way the system is. Tony wants me to put it back, I think, the backdrop. I'll probably end up making more of a mess, and I still have to clean up the water that I spilled. Nobody's hoping for piles and piles. Well, I did just have my wife come to my office yesterday because she helps me go through my paperwork and my piles. So she's sort of my accountability partner in some ways. Guys, thank you so much. I'm gonna end the broadcast here. I want to encourage you, if you have not subscribed to ADHD Rewired, if you're listening on iTunes or on Stitcher, please click subscribe because it actually helps the ratings and how people find the podcast. And please leave a review as well because otherwise it gets kind of buried in iTunes. And so, as I say on some of the episodes, those ratings and reviews help turn ADHD Rewired into a bright, shiny object at the top of iTunes. So I appreciate you guys coming to this, and I look forward to doing this again in the near future. And I hope to see some more of you in the group. We are at 10 people right now. I don't think I'm getting real-time updates for registration. So if you have registered for the group, thank you. I will be contacting you very shortly to go through a kind of a screening conversation with you, and get ready to get your ADHD rewired.